So, writing equations of lines in point slope and slope intercept form. We've actually already done it in point slope form. I don't know if you remember it or not. Let's try it. Can you write the formula for point slope form for me right on your paper? So go ahead. Point slope form. See if you remember it. Go ahead and jot it down. When you are finished, look up at my screen and check and see if you match. It should be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Is that what you have? Oh, good. So, point slope form is our easiest form to start with because all you need is what the name says, a point and a slope. Okay? So that's all I need to find. So let's just say use anytime you are given, spell given right. I still spelled it wrong. Wow. Given a point and a slope. Or can find a point and slope. Because sometimes they don't just come right out and give it to you. You might be given the graph of the line. So you might have to look at the graph and figure out what the slope is and a point. Okay, so they may not say it in words. You may find it that way. All right, and of course you remember that m is just slope, and then that x1 comma y1 is just any point on the graph. Okay, so let's try it. Say I gave you these directions, right? The equation of the line with, let's say number 1, we're going to have a slope of 3, and it goes through the point, goes through to -4. Well, if you know point slope form, you're just going to fill in all the pieces, right? So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's just replace it with what we know. What do I plug in? Obviously, I'm going to put 3 in for m. That's easy. But what do I put these in for? Yeah, x1 and y1. So the x and y that doesn't have the little 1 on it, it just stays. So I'm going to do y minus y1. So in this case, minus -4 turns it into a plus. M is 3. And then that first x stays, minus x1. That's literally it. You just wrote an equation of a line. That's it. Now, sometimes we require you to give the equation of the line in a certain form. So, yeah, that's point slope form, that's great. So if I ask for the equation in point slope form, you're done. If I ask you for the equation in slope intercept form, I'm still going to start with point slope form, but then I would change it. Okay? So, we did that, and then I'm just going to add if you need to give your final answer in slope intercept form, does anybody remember how I change this into slope? Distribute and then get the y by itself. Just 1 distribute and then 2 just, oh gosh, why am I spelling wrong, everything incorrectly today? Distribute and then 2 get y alone. But again, if you're not asked to do that, you don't have to do that part. Let's assume that I am, though, just so I have an example. So I'm just going to recopy what I had, 3 times x minus 2. So I'm going to distribute 3x minus 6, and then minus that 4. All right. Let's try, maybe I'll give you a picture of a graph and you come up with the equation. Let's do this one right here. So if I'm given a graph, I don't know the y-intercept. I don't know the slope right away. No matter what, you're going to have to figure out what the slope is. So why don't you start there? Find me the slope of that. Oh, you have it already? You're so fast. What is it? Olivia? Negative. Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will, thanks. A negative 2/3, right? Does everybody agree? So, negative 2/3. Now, yes. Oh, do I owe you money?
Down to $7.
Oh, I owe you $7?
No.
Oh, I still have $7? Oh, great. Thanks, guys. Rolling in dough here. Or iced tea. Okay. So, my slope is negative 2/3. And the other thing that I need to write the equation of a line in point slope form is a point. Now, there's 2 points. Well, there's an infinite number of points, actually. But there's 2 that I know exactly where they are. 1, 1, and 4, negative 1. How do you know which one to pick? You can pick 1, 1. But guess what? You can also pick 4, negative 1. It doesn't matter. Remember that this was any point on the line. So any point you want, it doesn't matter. You pick any point. Literally, any point. Just pick one that you know is a good point. Don't try and guess that one like 2, 1/2. Maybe it's 1/2, but maybe it's 1/3. I don't know. Don't pick that one. Pick one of the nice ones. 1, 1, or 4, negative 1. I'd pick 1, 1 just because it's easier, right? So I usually just pick the number with the easier numbers in it. 1, 1. So if I want to write the equation of this line, I have everything I need. I have a slope, negative 2/3, and I have a point, 1, 1. Isn't that exactly what we just did right here? I gave you a slope and I gave you a point. So if you're given a graph, you're just going to extract that information from it. So my slope was negative 2/3 and my point is 1, 1. So, oops, sorry. Go ahead and write me the equation of that thing. Just leave it in point slope form. What would that look like? Did you write that? Perfect. That's it. So if you are given a graph, just extract from that graph what is the slope and then pick some random point on it. But Miss Sabia, what if I had picked the other point? Am I going to get it wrong? Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. So someone that had picked they still would have the same slope. Everybody has the same slope. But if they had picked the point, what was it, 4, -1? Their equation would have looked like this. Zoom out a little bit. So who's right? Because they don't look the same. They have the same slope, sure, but the rest of it looks different. They're both right. They're both right. And even if they had picked another point that wasn't one of these two, as long as it's on that line, it doesn't matter. They're both right. So, when I'm grading it, it can be a little bit difficult on my end because there's so many different right answers. But, Miss Savia, how could these two equations look so different and they're the same line? You ready to see this magic? Are you ready? Just watch this. Ready? One of the reasons why we ask you to write your final answer in slope intercept form a lot is because of this magic that happens right here. So if I change this into slope intercept, let's distribute that -2/3. Now that'll be a +2/3. I need to add 1 to both sides. I got kind of lucky here. What's 1 + 2/3? 1 2/3. Okay. All right, so there's that one in slope intercept form. Let's do this one in slope intercept form. So distribute, that'll be a +8/3, right? Now I need to -1 from each of them. So now let's be careful. I have to do -1, 8/3 -1, right? But I can't because they don't have the same denominator. So yeah, so I'll do 8/3 instead of minusing by 1. I'll just multiply by 3/3. So it's really, I'm subtracting 3/3, aren't I? So what's 8/3 minus 3/3? 5/3. Miss Savia, they're still not the same. They are, right? Because what is 1 2/3? If you write it as it's, yeah, they are the same exact thing. How weird. So no matter which point you pick, it doesn't matter. When you rewrite it into slope intercept form, they'll always come out the same. It'll always match. Isn't that something? Wow. So you start with point slope form because it's super easy to use. And then you might just have to convert your answer into slope intercept form. Does this make sense so far? Okay. So, is there a way that you could skip over point slope form and go right to slope intercept? You can. Are you all right? Your eyes all red. Oh, were you rubbing it? Oh. Anyway, so what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So sometimes you can jump right to this. When can you do that? Well, if I still need to know the slope, but if I happen to know the y-intercept, sometimes I do. Sometimes I know what the y-intercept is. Like if I were looking at, of course none of these are a good example. Oh, this one's all right. Say I was looking at this graph. I do know where it crosses the y-axis. It's at 6. So I know in y = mx plus b, I know that b is just going to be a +6. And then I can also find my slope. So I don't have to start in point slope and then rewrite it if I know where the y-intercept is. I can just jump right there. Does that make sense? So let's talk about that real quick and then we'll try some of these. So let's see. To jump directly to slope intercept form. Which remember is y = mx plus b. You need 1, the slope. You need the slope no matter what you do. To write any equation of any line, you have to start with the slope. Okay? So I'm going to need the slope, and then the second thing I need is the y-intercept. And I'm just going to add a note right here. If you don't know this, if you don't know the y-intercept, just use point slope and rewrite it. Rewrite equation into slope intercept. Okay, so again, you can only do this shortcut if you know the slope and the y-intercept. If I don't know the y-intercept, I can't do this. I'm just going to start with point slope and go from there. Okay, let's try one. Say I gave you a graph like this. All right, say you had this graph. Let me zoom in. I'm going to ask myself, okay, I didn't draw this line perfectly straight, sorry. I'm not very good at that. I need the slope, no matter what form I'm going to use. So what's the slope of this thing? 1/2, right? Up 1 over 2? So my slope is a positive 1/2. Okay, great. I know I have a slope. Now, I could pick a point, start it in point slope form, and then rewrite it, but I don't have to because I know the y-intercept, don't I? What is it? 3, right? So I'm just going to go right to y equals mx plus b, plug in the m, plug in the b, and I'm done. So it really is just that easy. Our slope was 1/2. And then we found out that b was 3. So I just go to y equals mx plus b and plug the pieces in. So it's y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Done. Oh, that's so nice and easy. Okay, let me give you another one to try. Go ahead and write me the equation of this line in slope intercept form. You have an answer already?
Yeah.
What is it?
Y equals 3x minus 2. Yes.
Yes.
3x.
Yeah, my slope is a -3 here, isn't it? So go from any one point to the next point, you're going to go down 3 over 1. So I know my slope is a -1, and I do know my y-intercept, it's 2. So put it all together, y equals -3x minus 2. Okay, I'm going to try and trick you with this next one, okay? So you know I'm trying to trick you. I'm also not drawing straight lines very well at all. Alright, I'm going to redo this one because it's so bad. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm not going to mess up this time. Now we're talking. Okay. Write me the equation of this line in slope intercept form. So you always have to start with your slope. So everybody find the slope if you haven't yet. Everybody has a slope? Sam, what do you say? 1/4 is correct for that slope. Do you know the y-intercept?
No.
No, not just by looking at this. You can't guesstimate where it is. An approximation is not what? What's the matter?
I figured that like, oh, that's around like the third-ish, maybe like 4-ish.
Right.
I mean,
You're not wrong. It is around there, but I need to be exact.
Well, you have the x-intercept.
I do have an x-intercept, but is that going to help me with anything? Probably not. So what are you going to do? What'd you say? Because then I would know that it's crossing at 0, and it's not crossing at 0. Guys, what do you do if you don't know the y-intercept? Put it in point slope and then rewrite it. Yes, right? Didn't we just say that? If you don't know the y-intercept, just use point slope and rewrite the equation to slope intercept. So, looking back at, here's the picture again. You're going to pick one of those 2 points. It doesn't matter which one. Just take one of those 2 points with the slope. You already know it's 1/4. So take a slope of 1/4, pick one of those 2 points, and plug it into point slope form, and then rewrite it. Now, when you rewrite it, double check that your final answer has a slope of 1/4, and it should have a y-intercept around, I don't know, 1/3-ish. So it should be something like that. I shouldn't get a y-intercept of 17, for example, because I know it's not at 17. It's somewhere in between 0 and 1. I just don't know exactly where. But when I do it out algebraically, it will tell me exactly where it is. You have it already? Holy moly! Let's give everybody else a moment to find theirs. I see some people without pencils in their hands. I don't know how in the world they'd be trying this problem without a writing utensil and putting that writing utensil to the paper and actually making marks. Okay, so there are 2 points that you could have chosen from. What's this one? 3, 1. So you could have chosen 3, 1, or you could have chosen, what's this guy?
0, no. -1,
1, 0. Okay, so those are your 2 options right there, 3, 1 or -1, 0. Well, so you can. It doesn't matter, right? It's your choice. You're going to pick whatever you like. Me, personally, if one of my points has a 0 in it, I like to use that one because dealing with 0 is so easy. I mean, these aren't bad either. Dealing with 3 and 1 is fine. But for me personally, I like to use, if I have a 0, I like to use that. And we said our slope was what, 1/4? So when I put these pieces together, if I'm going to use this one, y minus y1 equals m
No, I do it wrong.
times x minus x1 turns into a plus. And then, what's y minus 0, guys?
Y.
Just y. And then all I have to do is distribute that 1/4. I'm done. If you pick the other point, you're not wrong. You just have a little bit more work to do because that's not a 0. So let's just try it. If you had done the 3 1 point, it would have been y minus 1 equals m is 1/4 times x minus 3. So you would distribute that 1/4 and then add the 1. See how this is more annoying? Because now I have to deal with the fractions. I got to move it over. But that's not actually so bad to do in your head, right? What's 1 minus 3/4? Wouldn't you be left with 1/4, right? Which matches the other one. So no matter which point you picked, if you did it correctly, you would have ended up with that answer. Which makes sense, because if I look at my graph, yeah, it looks like 1/4 is a totally reasonable spot for that y-intercept. So even though I don't know it just by glancing at it here, once I do the math out, I know exactly where it crosses. It crosses at exactly positive 1/4. Cool. Okay. Maybe we'll try one more thing, and then that'll be it for today. Well, for as far as me teaching you stuff, because then you gotta digest it and practice it, right? What if I don't give you a graph at all? No graph, and I don't even tell you what the slope is. How do you find slope?
Oh,
What do you need?
minus y1 over x.
Right. If I gave you just 2 points, that's it. No graph, no slope, no nothing. I just gave you 2 points. I said, find me the equation of the line between these 2 points. And that's all I gave you. Oh my gosh. Do you think you could do it? Of course you could. Why not? So, let's try it. So, let me write the directions. We'd say, write the equation. And this time I do want it in slope intercept form, so that's y equals mx plus b. Of the line between I'm not even gonna pick points that are that bad. How about 1, 2 and 2, 3. So, what do you think is the very first thing that I do?
Huh?
What's the first thing I have to do? Justina? Perfect. Very first thing I have to do is find the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We always have to find the slope. If they don't give it to me, I have to find it myself. So take a minute and find the slope.
Found it.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so fast. Well, even if you tell it to me, I won't know if you're right because I haven't done it yet. 1, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Well, what do you know? It is 1. All right, cool. So I have my slope is 1. Do you know what the y-intercept is? No, I have no idea. So what do I do if I don't know the y-intercept? Olivia? Which one?
Do you
Dylan?
put it in 2 point slope distribution?
Perfect. Put it in point slope form first and then just rewrite it. Which point am I going to pick? Doesn't matter. Another common mistake, and I don't even know if I should say this because I don't want it in your brain, but some of you are going to do it, so I need you not to. A common mistake is to like pick one value from this pile and one value from this pile. You can't do that. That's totally wrong. Just pick one of the two, either the first point or the second point, not one from each. Okay? I usually just pick the one with the smaller numbers. If one of them has a 0, I use that. But if neither of them have a 0, they're just a little bit smaller, so I would just use 1, 2. Doesn't matter though, you can pick this one, because we know it's going to end up being the same. So, find slope, and then 2, use point slope form. And then we'll just say 3, rewrite into slope intercept. Alright, so in point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So there it is in point slope form. And now I want to rewrite it into slope intercept form. So yeah, let's just distribute the 1, which just leaves it like that. Add the 2 over. Bingo, bango. Did you get what I got? Oh my gosh. You guys are so good. You see that? Okay. I'm going to stop talking now. Let's stop this video before we lose it.